Hey, I think we're live. First time using this software on this computer to do a live stream. So I'm hoping for the best. Why? I often do Facebook Live or Instagram Live or Insta Stories. A lot of those links are going to be below. But I'm here on YouTube Live today just to see how that works, where everybody's at. It has a different format. It's kind of nice. So can you hear me? Looks to me like the microphone seems slow. You know what I could do? I'm going to very quickly just pick up here, and that will give people a few minutes to come on, just so I can hear, make sure the sound is working. And then we'll jump in. Today we're going to, well, let me just start with an intro. I'm Laura Volpin-Testa. This is my book, The Language of Fashion Design. I'm a fashion designer and illustrator who's been teaching for over 20 years at Parsons School of Design, teaching fashion and design. I also teach art, and you probably know I'm a musician as well, mom, just a lot of things that make us up, right? But when I teach art and design, I love to help you overcome your fears and notice how you talk to yourself when you create. Clean up that energy, because there's often a lot of things that come up. You can't do this, you can't do that, perfectionism, inner critic, stuff like that. I love to work with you to overcome that so that you can just express yourself, and also to realize why you want to express yourself, what you want to express, and to really feel realized by bringing out that energy that's inside of you, bringing out that voice that's inside of you. In the beginning, it may be a little rough coming out, it's okay. And then to hone it and build a relationship with it and really grow into the fullest expression of your unique voice, whether that's for a professional career in the fashion industry, or pioneering in the ethical fashion world, or private practice, because any private creative practice to me is sacred and divine. Your desire comes from your heart. What you want, what you imagine, why would it be there for any other reason than because it's yours? And so we're here to listen, to tune in. Why am I called to do this? What am I called to do? And how do I get the tools to start doing it? And when you get the tools and you get the techniques and you get the containers to create in, you get to tap into all this intuition and magic. Because I tell you, every time I sit down, even when I sat down to write the book, but when I sit down to illustrate or to create dresses, it's never planned ahead. I create the space, but what comes through is always surprise. And I love that magical adventure, that journey, and that's what I want for you. I also love the passing on the experience of getting new eyes and new hands, a new way of looking at things. So when you realize that new perspectives change the way you move in the world, that can apply to everything. So it's a real quality of life thing to me. It's very spiritual and very enjoyable. So just wanted to see if the volume looks low, but it seems that I cannot test it. But I'm sure if anyone pops in and they can't hear, they're going to let me know anyway. All right, here we go. Here we go. Let me just test it, okay, guys? Hope it doesn't feedback. I click on it. Just test it. Yeah, it's working. Click on it. Not a big delay either, which is fantastic. Okay, so I have been scheduling some of these, and some of them have been impromptu. So today I just jumped on. I'm so happy to meet you. Enthusiastic to work with you. There are videos on this channel for sketching. There are videos about mindset, and there are videos about pattern making, draping, stuff like that. I've taught all those things, and I have courses in all those things that are also linked below. So we're going to talk about the book. The Language of Fashion Design is 26 chapters. I had to pick 26 principles, like an alphabet. Like the publisher, it's not a book I wrote independently. It was like the publisher came to me and said, we have this title for this series. Will you write it? So I had to pick the 26 principles. Each principle It's 26 to mimic the alphabet, and there are also 26 mini biographies in there. So every chapter features one designer. My favorite review that the book got by the Yale University book review was when a woman said that it was omnivorous. It's an omnivorous book. And that made me so happy because I intentionally wanted it to be very global. So it is a very global. I had to do the research and be able to collect enough images to fill the book within a certain budget. I made sure that I got the whole globe because that's a value to me. I also have a lot of former students work in here and even a lot of my own work in here, and then work from designers. It's always Fashion Week somewhere at this point, all over the world. And I love that. I was a fashion student in the 90s, started in 1991, graduated in 1995, started teaching in 1997. So the fashion world was entirely different then, for better or for worse. Now we have so many voices, which is great. I really believe in the niches now that you can access. I don't buy fashion magazines anymore. Do you? I go on Instagram and I curate my own magazine. I follow body positive, ethical fashion. All different countries, all different styles. I also follow on the same pages, people who believe in things that I want to know more about. I follow childbirth and some homeschooling, and I follow women's issues, spiritual things. It's like you really get to build your own magazine. Am I right? That's so different than the way I grew up, rather than having just like one big voice coming down at us. And that's why I also believe that education that really, really focuses on your beliefs, your joy, and your voice is going to change the shape of fashion industry, because fashion industry is that thing. I don't know if you know, but the closer you get to it, the more you get like, whoa, what was I getting into? I think so many of the good-hearted, creative, magical dreamers that come into fashion to study with me at the university never intended to end up in the industry they kind of end up in. I speak for myself. But fortunately, I was teaching even more than I was working in, because I found that actually the industry itself wasn't particularly something that suited me. The art, yes. The craft, yes. The theory, the design, the history, the possibility, the creation, yes, 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 yes. But when it gets too big and it gets too corporate and it gets too sweatshoppy and it gets too no. So we're here to create a new world for fashion and just really nerd out on it. So I have not picked chapters in advance. I have taken recommendations. If you have one, please drop it in the comments below. And what I'm doing today is I have made over the past 5 years countless, endless videos showing you how to draw things, showing you how to paint things. A lot of them came down this year and I was trying to bundle them into courses, but there's still a lot here. Gouache illustration, marker illustration, iPad freehand illustration, and all kinds of things about model drawing, which is a huge passion of mine. Don't get me started, although I may. Model drawing, because that can be fashion specific or just pure art. And that's one of my favorite things to teach, because the human body is so expressive. And then because model drawing is a channel through which we get to be in the moment and explore deeply. To me, it's kind of like a yoga. It involves your whole body, it involves focus and tuning in, and it involves stretching and feeling just in a new environment. It's very, very powerful, and it never gets old. So Model Magic is my most intensive boot camp, all about model drawing, that's designed to be very transformative and myth busting. And I invite you to join me for the journey. All my courses right now are lifetime access, and they all have private communities in them too, with pre-recorded video. There's coaching as well. Let me know if you have questions. So I'm going to randomly open the book and talk about one of the chapters in here. So paperback, And I was just sharing on Instagram today because my Facebook memory showed up. And it was showing there's also a Chinese language, Russian language, Spanish, and French editions out there in the world. So if you need links or have interest, also let me know. Okay, so I just opened. I forgot to think before I opened, and I came to texture. Beautiful topic. So every chapter starts like this with a dictionary definition, and then we riff out on some research, some ideas. Okay, here goes. So texture as an element in fashion design. Well, every time I talk about fashion, I kind of, every one of these talks now is starting to turn into a format where there's the art, the pure art of texture. Then there's art supplies and texture, meaning fashion art, like fashion illustration, and then texture as far as fashion design itself and how it can feed your designs. So first, let's talk about texture in art. And what I would want to say right there off the bat is that we have I often will always be recommending, you'll notice some of you have already studied with me, textural papers. They don't have to be like super coarse, but I tend to use and recommend cold pressed or vellum surface papers because they are so fabric like. And when we're drawing fashion, we want to represent fabric. We also want it to hold paint in a way that the colors can be rich and vibrant. So not just texture, but even the thickness of your paper will make a difference. Sketchbook paper is going to look more sheer and uneven. The Bristol paper that we use, Bristol vellum that we use for illustrations, bold, rich. The gouache that we use behaves entirely different on illustration paper than it does on sketchbook paper. And that's okay because sketchbook is kind of a quick, get your ideas out of your head kind of thing. And an illustration paper is more like, I'm presenting my design collection in a set of sketches. Here they are. What do you think? Do you know what I'm saying? And rendering prints and textures, it works better on the thicker paper. Another thing about texture that I wouldn't have brought up a few years ago, but I will now, is that I use my iPad Pro, but don't worry, I started with a mini. You don't have to have a Pro to do a lot of fashion illustration now. And that was something I never, ever, ever, ever wanted to do because fashion illustration, like I told you, for me, it's so much about texture, fabric. This is ribbed, this is not, this is, is it fur, is it hair, what is the texture like, right? Drawing on glass with an iPad doesn't feel textural to me. And in my classes at the university, first year students doing digital art, it was often very, very not textural looking, very cold. And that's something for me, it's very important. I'm a Virgo. I like to feel the organic in the work. I like to feel texture and grit. So I was not into any kind of digital drawing. But when I started my business and I started sharing art on social media all the time, I was always coming up against lighting and photography quality. And I had a little infant at home. I was like, I cannot figure out how to be a star photographer right now. So I noticed that when I created digital fashion art, it was lush and vibrant and rich. So, I didn't have to photograph it. I just had to screenshot it or download it, and it looked brilliant for advertising and social media. So now, most of you know, I'm extremely passionate about digital fashion illustration in my iPad, which I'm pointing at but not using, as well as fine art in my iPad. And it's just interesting because that's something I swore I would never be into. I'm so into. And I teach those. I have my About Faces online course is all about using your iPad for illustration. But I do strongly believe in getting grounded on real art supplies first, which is why my Freedom Fashion program is only with gouache and pencils. Because back to the word texture. So when you're creating textures on your iPad, They look like textures, but you're still touching glass, which is kind of takes some getting used to. That's why I stopped using my Apple Pencil, started using my finger, because one needs to feel. At least some people do, right? Okay, so texture is the visual and especially tactile quality of a surface. Now, if fashion isn't about surface, I don't know what is. So there's actually a chapter in the book called Surface as well. Now that I think of it, I think I used, without being conscious of it, texture and surface. I'm talking about similar things, aren't I? Yeah. I'm thinking right now about how this shirt feels and how these earrings feel because they're both fabric and they're very different. So this is a woven and it's gathered. So it has texture, both in the way it's constructed as well as what it's made out of. And my shirt also it's jersey knit. Now this is woven, this is knit. It's a fine gauge knit and it's constructed very flat. No gathers at all. Gathers. So it's a very different textural experience. Smooth. And the pants I'm wearing are synthetic knit and they're like waffle textured. Ta-da! So that's another texture. Okay, so we're already, but those are also surfaces. Interesting thing is, that surfaces touch your skin. That's one experience of fashion from the inside. And surfaces are what people see from the outside. So the interesting thing is you could technically be wearing like a slick, shiny vinyl raincoat that's soft and fuzzy inside. You can have two surfaces, right? So let's see what we picked in here. Every chapter has like a different flavor to it. Whether played up or down, texture is always present as textile naturally lends texture. The designers discussing fabric selections for a piece or group don't just look at swatches. Don't just look at swatches, right? Once you start working with fabrics and you have an idea about a fabric for a garment, you're not just going to look at it and say, oh, that's pretty. I like that color. You got to touch it. You have to feel it. Think, consider, how heavy is it? How does it fall? Does it stretch? Is it warm? Is it cool? What associations does it bring to mind? Close your eyes. There's a whole story to fabric beyond your sight. Very interesting. So actually the concept of texture is very much about fabric. You can't see my book, it's right here. However, as in the case of these earrings, can you see that? It's hard for you to tell because they're printed, but it's all gathered into the center. A whole bunch of fabric is squished. So texture isn't only from textile. Texture can be created by construction elements such as ruching, gathering, pleating, beading, crochet. There's all these other ways we can create texture as well, right? And a texture that is very subtle, such as the one on this shirt, is just as much a texture as is this woven or this woven, which is linen. Very, very different texture from the shirt I'm wearing, right? Et cetera, et cetera. A texture doesn't have to be extreme to be a texture. It can be subtle and still be a texture, but when I think texture, I tend to think of like chunky things and lumpy, bumpy things, stuff like that. Okay, so one of the pictures I have here is a singer in Japan, and her dress is like all different kinds of tulle and lace and ruffles and veils and a lot of different textures all in one color. And that's an interesting way to build contrast into a garment, that it's a pretty monochromatic garment, but with lots of different textures. And then I love how this designer, Lily Blue, I'll admit I was disappointed that they decided to put the picture in the spine. but I didn't get to make all the choices. Okay. Her dress not only, okay, it takes a traditional texture we recognize, which is lace, but brings it into a very organic feeling that's almost like just like a tree goddess or something, right? It's like a tree trunk. It's like leaves. And I liked adding this one in here. One, because the bio is interesting of the designer, but also because lace is something I usually associate with refinery. And then to see it interpreted in such a very earthy and organic way, I felt like I like the play of associations, like when we're always used to seeing something used a certain way, and then you flip it on its head. I think it was very interesting how she did that, and I also liked the asymmetrical hemlines in here, and it's particularly all this uneven seaming that runs over the body. Yeah, it's a very interesting piece. This is another piece of hers too, where it looks like, I was gonna say, I don't have my glasses on, but I kind of do. I can't remember if this dress is suede. You know how suede can have two different sides to it? Whatever fabric she used is suede on one side and kind of reflective and smooth on the other side. So she was able to interplay two different surfaces, two different textures using a single fabric that had different textures on each side. It's another great concept. And so the reason I bring these things up in today's talk and in all the talks in this series is so that you can take concepts that came up today and run with them. So you may know, like, oh, I have a swatch in my bag that's, bumpy on one side, smooth on the other. And what if instead of lining it or hiding the wrong side of the fabric, what if I created pieces that specifically used both surfaces in single garments and played the surfaces off each other? And that's one possible assignment for today's talk. Take a fabric that has two different textures to each side of it and use both as design elements and play them off each other. Okay, that's based on the one that we saw. A second one, I'm thinking all three on this page are monochromatic. If you're working monochromatically, which means using a single color, the fact that you're using a single color and not having a pattern or a print actually emphasizes the texture of the fabric, right? If you put a pattern on textured fabric, you see the pattern before you see the texture oftentimes, right? But if you put a texture on a fabric that is a single color, that texture becomes more apparent to the viewer. So a second possibility would be that you could design a collection using solid colored fabrics with distinct textures. And then a third one, based on the other picture we saw, which was of the Japanese singer, what if you used a bunch of different swatches, all very close in color, but all different textures? And also, see the ruffles down here? So in this case, they're creating textures not only from textural fabrics, but by taking fabrics and turning them into textures, like these ruffles. So maybe the whole garment is made from a single fabric, but you're creating textures from that fabric by gathering it, by squishing it up, by pleating it, by knotting it, by embroidering on it, beading on it, weaving it, right? Crocheting strips of the fabric. How many different ways can you take one fabric and create different textures of it? So that's yet another, that's like 4 different assignment options I just gave you that you can use to sketch or even to research if you're not comfortable drawing yet. There's so much designing and design thinking that you can do simply by looking, right? Simply by looking around. Give me just 1 second, you guys, because I realized I can tweet this out and it would be nice to get more people in the room. There are illustrations and photos that I want to talk to you about because we have a little more time. I wanted to make these streams about 45 to 60 minutes. Let me just tweet this out because it's really helpful to have. Oh, yeah, to have people jump in and share it out because then we get more lively discussion in the comments and you can all benefit from each other's insights and conversations. So, is there anywhere else I would put this out? Okay, thanks for your patience. Well, I think I'm just going to put one on Facebook. Okay. So, back to the drawing board. So, one interesting one here is that I'll just share this one. We didn't look at any drawings yet. So, this is an illustration I did in charcoal of a jacket by a Brazilian designer named Patachu. And it's interesting because she's wearing sequins. Talk about texture, right? That's a texture you would you never want next to your skin, but it's very desirable in just in dressing. So it's fun to look at how it almost feels like a sweater or something, but that it's actually sequin. And to talk also about the idea of when you are drawing a texture, you don't need to draw every sequin, right? Or every piece of fur on a fur coat. You just give that impression. Working with light and dark is a great way to do that, meaning just black and white. The best way to practice drawing textures when you're beginning out, the best way to learn to draw anything when you're starting out is to do a lot of black and white work, black and white and gray, so that you can clean your eye from all the emotion of color and just observe what light and dark are doing, how they're dancing with each other. So that's a fun one. This was an interesting one for texture because it's color blocked and very vivid as well. But even if it was not, it's got these reflective leggings and then this shiny yet textural skirt. And then it's a little harder for me to see right now without looking directly at the page because I'm holding it up to you guys. But you can sense that there are different textures. This is knit, this is woven, this is matte, this is shinier, this is even shinier. So it's interesting how there's one outfit by Agatha Ruiz de la Parada, who I love her colors. I find them very energizing and joyful. Love it. Oh, and very innovative design concepts, really like art design concepts. I haven't looked at her website in a few years, but I think I even have a page on my website about her because this is more traditional type stuff, but she has some very, very inspiring experimental stuff. I'm old school. I crave the art of fashion. You know, not just fashion design and social blah, 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 blah. I love innovation. I love thinking. I love when you know that the designer deeply loves what they're doing and when you see something, it just makes your heart blow up. And she has that kind of stuff. I mean, she does things where you're like, I've never seen anything like that in my whole life, which is always a wonderful feeling to have. It's just all about, to me, it's like always feeling like a child, always feeling that life has some newness for you. That you're always, to remind you that you're always on a journey. You're not stuck in, anyway. Okay. So I create these classes so you can have that experience of adventure and expansion. Here's another very interesting one where the textures are created, they're inspired by nature, but they're created from fabric. Like not just from textural fabrics, but textures created from pieces of fabric. Very, very, very interesting and unique and asymmetrical. Asymmetry was another chapter we had. So another assignment prompt that you may want to sketch about is what if you only created your texture through, like one fabric type that we kind of mentioned that about the last one, but cutting it into different ways, using it, creating textures out of your fabric. And that designer it's been so long, I'm not, Eva Soto Conde. Eva Soto Conde from Madrid. And I have her in I have her in several places throughout the book. She's amazing. Here's a really fun and interesting one because let me just get the name because it's been so long. I can't remember all the names. With the girl Surnathon from Bangkok, Thailand. And this is all knitwear, which I think is really cool. These knit. Some of it may be hand woven. It also looks hand dyed. It just has a very organic feel. And one thing I love about this photo is it reminds you what a collection is, what it's like when a group of clothes are conceived together as a group. How are they alike? How are they different? And also just how that feels when you experience it. So that's definitely something I want you to think about when you're sketching out your ideas, because together they tell even more of a story. And storytelling is something we all want to do by instinct. I didn't read any of the text from the chapter. Seems to be one of the shorter chapters. I don't know if I get the designer's name here. Lily Blue from London. London designer. I think she's based in Los Angeles. And that's it for that chapter on print. Let me just see if there's a nice quote in here that I can share with you. The sun went down while I was doing this live stream, so now I can hardly read anything. Texture may attract visually first, but the very next impulse is to reach out and touch what is seen. We talked about that, right? To delight with texture is to create luxury of form that wants to be handled, and texture should always be the benefit of the wearer's experience inside of the clothes as well. How often do you have some fuzzy pajamas or something that you buy and they're not fuzzy on the inside? Function is important. User experience is important. So when you're thinking about texture in your designs, of course, it seems like an of course, but how often is it forgotten that the textures that are visually apparent to everyone should also delight the one wearing them? So that's something you could journal on, sketch on, riff on, or even make, as a real prompt to inspire a whole collection of pieces. What could be really beautiful on the outside and feel incredible inside? Or, because I love to be like this, what if you could make something where everything looked uncomfortable on the outside and you knew it was exquisitely comfortable on the inside? Playing with people's associations. Or what about those leather motorcycle jackets with the spikes all over? Those kinds of contrasts. What if it was silk charmeuse on the inside or baby blanket on the inside? Speaking of prompts, at fashionillustrationtribe.com, still one of the freebies is the 101 fashion design inspiration prompts. And it's kind of prompts like I just gave you. I just gave you maybe 5 or 6 today that you can take as homework. But if you download the PDF book, 101 Fashion Design Inspiration Prompts, you'll have lots of other ones you can work with. It's just a nice idea. It's even just a nice exercise to have prompts thrown at you. Sometimes you just get that writer's block, or you don't have an idea, or you just want to exercise your creativity. You can just open that book, pick one. Sometimes it just shifts your brain into a place where you go, aha, I know what I want to do. And that's why I created that book. You get that when you subscribe at fashionillustrationtribe.com. And that's not all you get. So I always bundle together some resources. I think there are croquis in the back of that book. So you can use the croquis. Well, croquis is a loosely used word, used differently by many people. But one way people use it is that it's a template. It's like a pre-sketched body with clean lines. So you can take paper, put it over that body, and sketch your clothes onto that doll over and over. I included quite a few in the book so that you could choose one that appeals to you. I do not use exaggerated body types at all. One of the main things I think Fashion Illustration Tribe does differently than 99% of the fashion schools or resources out there is not I have no interest in bodies that don't look like anyone that I've ever seen. I love my body. I love your body. I love our bodies. Designed for a body you can believe in. And while we're at it, and if you heard the other ones in this series, you know that I say this to a lot of my coaching clients too. Great designers, some of the greatest designers are designing for themselves. It just makes sense to design for someone you understand, just like I even teach as if I was teaching to myself based on what my experience was and who I was and who I am. Same thing to design for. I know how my body is shaped. I know how my body feels in different silhouettes. I know my personality. I know my lifestyle. I know where I want to go, who I want to see, what I want to wear, how much I want to spend. Like, I understand this person. Consider, because I spent my entire time in school not only drawing completely horrifically distorted bodies because I was taught to, and no one showed me that that was not the way, that didn't make any sense. But I was also designing always for this. Who was she? But it was never me. And now I always think of myself. And I think that just makes your design so appealing because they're grounded in your true knowing and your true desire and your true joy based on your experience and your dreams. So that's something to think about. Because we're almost wrapping up onto 36 and 45 minutes. Well, I'll give us about 10 more minutes. I wanted to take any questions. I wanted to let you know about the freebies. Other freebies that are in the subscription package at this time are a model drawing video. It teaches you to build a body because you do not need to be a model drawer to be a fashion designer or artist. As I told you, model drawing is amazing and I love it. And I have an amazing course that I open a few times a year, usually called Model Magic, that is only about model drawing. So the video you get when you subscribe is like, it shows you like portions and forms and how to create a body that is standing and proportionate and lively looking and in my unique way that I teach it. So I highly recommend that. I love it. I'm proud of it. But the Model Magic class takes a different approach to all that. And it talks more about not only exploring the body, but exploring your art supplies, basic art supplies, but taking those things that you see all the time and realizing just how dark and just how light and just how thick and just how thin they can get, like what the range of experiences are you can get from your art supplies, kind of using them in ways you didn't think you expected. It also focuses on poses. We start talking about posed figures and how to capture the movement, how to accurately. It's this thing, right? This we straddle between accuracy and like freedom, dynamic expression, liberation, that feeling of like freedom, but also accuracy. And the thing is that they seem like total opposites. And when you go far enough, the two come together. So that one of the goals of that class is to get you there, to have there each exercise, there are 15, each exercise in that program is a different way of seeing, a different way of exploring that become all part of a toolbox that you'll have here that like I've been doing this for 25 years and I still use these tools always and they still light up my world every time I use them. Excuse me. I'm just always at a different place in my journey when I use them. I always find myself through these exercises. Another thing that happens in that class with each exercise is that we bust a myth. So there are so many myths about how art is created, or limiting beliefs, or commonly held beliefs that we've never questioned and we've never turned them upside down or inside out. And in Model Magic class, we do precisely that. So you can have an eye-opening experience that shifts paradigms and has you be, see, and create in a new way. because to me, that's what it's all about. Um, Another aspect of model magic, I'm just bringing it up because that chapter was a shorter one, but I wanted to give you 45 minutes. So the other thing about model magic is we talk about how to get your energy into your drawing, your whole body's vital energy. I mean, especially for all of us who spend so much time at the computers, we get very like, I really want to create a full kind of body experience so that because imagine when you feel restricted and restrained, so are your drawings. When you feel boxed in and cranky, the women in your drawings are going to feel like that too. When you feel in the flow, vital, expressive, fulfilled, your drawings relaxed, all those things are going to come across in your drawings. Think about that, right? So I incorporated my way of approaching that is to incorporate music into a course. So any of my personal students for 20 years, they all know I'm like a DJ. Music was a very important part of our class. Usually Brazilian music, jazz, Latin, salsa. We use music to energize because music takes you out, right? And in the course, I created videos for you where you have posed models and different music soundtracks. You can just turn it off and play your own music, play whatever you love. But at least once throughout the course, I really recommend that you use the soundtrack so that you can notice how different styles of music make you feel and how they make you see and how they make you be and how they make you style what you're drawing. Because in model drawing, you start by drawing what you see, and then you're also like putting yourself into it and developing a style and telling a story about how you feel about what you see. Not only accuracy, but style, mood, putting yourself into it. So beautiful, right? So through music, you'll notice that different kinds of music really bring out different sides of your voice. So do different art supplies. So all of that comes up in model magic. It just sounds like such a simple thing, but honestly, if I only had one course that I would want like the whole world to take, it would be model magic. Because like I said, it's like a yoga, it's a meditation, it's an introspection, it's being in the moment, it's being in the now, it's transforming the way you see. Like I had this experience in my 20s, and it was so exciting that to this day, it's a value in my life to always have areas of my life that are just opening up and surprising me, because we start to always think that we know, we have it all figured out, and this is how the world works. And we sort of box ourselves in. And a class like Model Magic helps you remember that there's always an opening. There's always a way you can open up. And when you open up to that magic, you feel adventure, you feel curious, you feel motivated, you feel expressive, you feel alive, you feel in love, and you remember that you're like magical. And that's what the purpose of creating is about, because when we feel like that, we are great people in the world. We have an inner peace, and we remember that other people it makes it easy for us to see that all around us. That's my opinion. So thank you for joining me today. There's all kinds of goodies and links below. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. If you subscribe at YouTube, please click the bell, because otherwise, if you want notifications, otherwise you won't get them. And I know that when I follow people, I want to get them. And I think that's about it. So we're going to have more live streams soon. Let me know if you like them being on YouTube, because I'm still trying to, sometimes I'm on Instagram, sometimes I'm on Facebook. My Facebook business page is Fashion Illustration Tribe, and my Instagram, Laura Volpin Testa. Links are below. If you're getting this now while the video is new, everything that's listed there is open. That won't be forever. So now's the time to hop in. I'll probably be opening one course at a time throughout the year. So you know how to reach me. info@fashionillustrationtribe.com. Bye, guys. Yes.